Good day, my name is Papi Makobo. I'm going to do a ox kidney dissection presentation. Now, before I start with my presentation, I would just like to introduce my safety measures. I have my goggles. As you can see, I'm wearing my gloves, and I also am wearing my PPE, which is covering my whole body, also including my feet, and I'm also covering my hair. Now, before I do start with the dissection, I would just like to explain the function of the kidney. Now, the function of the kidney is to filter excess fluid or filter waste from the blood. That's what the kidney does. The other function of the kidney is to balance electrolytes and also balance hormones and also control blood pressure. Okay, now starting with the kidney. Now this is my full kidney, as you can see here. These parts here, these segments are called lobules. Now each and every kidney has 12 lobules. Those are the sections that the kidney has. Okay, now this is an example of my kidney when it's already open. Okay, I just dissected this kidney and I'm going to explain each and every process. All right, now the most outer layer part of the kidney is called the capsule. Right, now the capsule is the most outer layer part of the kidney and is also the one that gives the kidney stability. The capsule also protects the kidney from any possible injuries. So it's the one that makes it sure that the organelles that are inside the kidney don't get damaged during injuries. Okay, now the other thing that we're going to talk about here is the cortex. Now when you enter the kidney, right here is what we call the cortex. Right, now the cortex is typically explained as the base of the kidney, and this is where most nephrons are found. Now nephrons are the structural part of the kidney. They do most of the kidney functions. Okay, now speaking of the nephron, when the blood enters the kidney, it enters the kidney through the nephron. When the blood enters the kidney, it enters the kidney through the nephron. Okay, now as the blood enters the kidney, it goes through the cortex. Now this part here is called the cortex. Now the blood enters through the nephron, through the cortex, and it passes through the glomerulus. Now the glomerulus, you won't see it with your naked eye, but the glomerulus is more or less, basically it acts as a sieve of the kidney. It sieves each and every unwanted fluids or unwanted waste in the kidney. The other interesting fact about the glomerulus is that it can 20% of the fluid that enters the kidney is filtered or is cleansed through or by the glomerulus. Okay, now it is important to understand the fluids that operate within the kidney. Now after the blood enters through the nephron and the cortex, now when the filtration takes place or after the sieving has processed through the glomerulus, what happens is that the way the fluid that gets filtered is called a filtrate. Right, so basically all the blood after being filtrated, the blood that we get or the fluid that you get is called a filtrate. Now the filtrate, as it passes, as it goes through its process of filtration, the filtrate then enters the Bowman's capsule. Okay, now the Bowman's capsule, as it enters the Bowman's capsule through a process of filtration, it enters the Bowman's capsule and then it enters the proximal tubules, and then eventually it goes through it enters through the loop of Henle. Now basically the loop of Henle are loops that can't be seen with the naked eye, but they travel from the medulla to the cortex, from the medulla to the cortex. Now the medulla is the triangular part. That's the medulla, the triangular part. That's where most nephrons are located. Now the medulla is right here where most nephrons are located. Okay, now as we dive deeper into the presentation, we find that our kidney has some sort of triangular shapes. Those triangular shapes are called the renal pyramids. Now, the renal pyramids are the one that transports the urine through the nephron and the renal tubules. So all of these organelles work together during the filtration of the liquid or the fluid as it enters the kidney. Okay, now this white part here, this white large part here is called the renal pelvis, right? Now the renal pelvis collect urine down to the ureters, right? And then, I don't know if you can see it here, the one that is sticking out on this full kidney here. So you can see here, the one that transports the urine out is called the renal vein. So basically the renal vein it acts as a big vein that regulates blood temperature within the kidney. It's the one that controls how much blood goes into the kidney, and as blood gets carried out from the kidney into the heart, that's the renal vein that transports it. Now, last but not least, I want to talk about the filtrate, the process of the filtrate. Now, the filtrate is obviously the liquid or the blood that has been filtered. Now, the filtrate passes through the loop of Henle. As it passes through the loop of Henle, it goes through a collecting duct. Now, that collecting duct, everything gets drained down into the pelvis, the renal pelvis. So basically the renal pelvis is where everything gets drained into. As blood enters through the cortex, the capsule, the nephrons, the medulla, everything ends up getting drained in the renal pelvis. And as it gets drained in the renal pelvis, it goes through the calyxes, and then eventually it leaves the bladder, it leaves the kidney into the urinary bladder. Now we all know that once the urine is in the urinary bladder, that means it has already left the kidney and it is being ready to be excreted out of the body through urination. So basically, that's how the kidney functions, through the process of filtration with each and every organelle. Thank you.